What's up, guys? King of Sacramento checking in here. And today it's kind of a sad video, right? Kind of. I'm talking about abortion. This is my first episode of a series called Jalen Rants, right? So I'm going to make a series where I just rant about things. First thing I'm ranting about is abortion. Now, the reason why I'm talking about abortion is because I kept seeing videos and people talking to me about how it's okay to have an abortion and stuff like that. And I just really had to speak on it. Like it just irked me so bad. I have to speak on this. And hopefully this video doesn't get taken down. Praying to Christ it doesn't get taken down. But let's just jump straight into it. I do not think abortion is an okay thing to do, right? Now you might say a common argument people say is, "Oh, but what if it's rape? What if the child dies, or what if the mother's gonna die, or something like that?" The red conservative states, even if the mother's gonna die, they're just gonna let her die, and you just know it's wrong because it's coming from some super hyper emotional point. Whenever someone's bringing up some pathos on you, just don't listen to them, bro. Pathos is the worst. It's the most deceptive, straight from hell tactic you could ever use. It's fucking terrible. Don't use pathos when trying to convince someone. It works, but it's very bad, very devilish. That's what liberals and the left do. Don't do that. But abortion, when they bring up those arguments, number one, 96% of abortions, you can look this up, 96% of abortions are just because of unnamed reasons or recreational sex, right? So the unnamed reasons are just recreational sex, right? A lot, and then only 4%, right? That leaves 4% of birth complications and fucking incest or something like that, right? But 96% are just recreational sex. I don't want to hear like people bring up the 4% unproportionately to how many abortions are actually had and what they refer to, right? What most abortions refer to is just I was having sex with this girl and didn't want to be a dad. I didn't want to be a dad. I didn't want to be responsible for my actions. I didn't want to be responsible for my actions. So I just aborted the kid, right? And people bring up this 4% like it's the most important. It's like the deciding factor. They always talk about this 4%. When I talk about abortion, I'm talking generally. I'm talking about the 96%. So I'm letting you guys know this now in the beginning, so we don't get to this later and people are commenting, "Oh, but what about the 4%? But what about this?" Now let me address rape and all those grape or anything like that. Right? Hopefully YouTube doesn't take this video down again. Let me address those situations. Now I think the mother should have the child in every single case, unless the mother's life is at serious risk. And I'm not talking about like 2%, because every birth you're at risk, right? Every birth you're at risk, whether that's like 1% risk, 2% risk, 3% risk. I need the risk to be like above 50%, bro. Like a coin flip, right? Something like that. That's what I think. So I think in incest, keep the baby. Every single instance, keep the baby. That's what I'm saying. Down syndrome, keep the baby because it's a human. And people they'll say it's not a human. That's not a baby. That's just some. It's just a clump of cells, right? And well, you're a clump of cells, right? The funny thing is, you're no smarter than the fetus that's in there because you're trying to kill it, bro. You're trying to murder it. You can't be much smarter than the fetus that's in there. Now, the number one argument that I go to, not in a debate bro kind of way, but the number one thing that I say is if it wasn't a baby, then how come people go to baby showers, right? You call it a baby shower, right? Every when the mother's like getting kicked in the stomach, I know because family members they'd be like, "Oh, my baby's," when they're pregnant, they're like, "Oh, the baby's kicking." The baby, it's just a clump of cells. Right, I can feel the baby. Like it's all these different things. They even in their language, they like kind of Freudian slip because they know it's a baby. They call it a baby shower. Oh, is the baby okay? Is the baby all right? Stuff like that. So that's why it's a baby, right? It's 100% a human, dude. Like It's you because you know if you let that baby grow up to 9 months, it's going to be a human child. You know it's going to be a baby. That's why you're trying to kill it now before it gets to that stage. So you know it's just an underdeveloped baby, bro. Like it's a developing like baby that's outside of the womb. It's not like not a child. So that's just stupid. So back to the emotional thing. Whenever someone uses pathos and whenever someone oh, like I heard someone say, yeah, so in these red conservative states, they're actually killing the children. Like they're actually like not allowing the mothers to have abortions. Even if their life is at risk, even if the child's life is at risk, they're just gonna let him die. They're just gonna let him die. And I'm like, that's immediately you could tell because it's so filled of emotion. It's not true. It's just propaganda. So I'm sitting there like, that is some bullshit. That did not happen. There's no way that's true. You're telling me this mother is going to die, and the conservative doctor's like, "Sorry, miss, we're just gonna let you die. Sorry, we can't abort the child. We gotta save the child's life, miss. We gotta." No, bro, you're out of your mind if you think that. People aren't living in reality these days. They're not living in reality. They're not going outside in the world, right? I was talking to some dude about how abortion was wrong, and this dude brought up climate change. His argument for why abortion was wrong was because of climate change. And I was like, okay, how is it because of climate change? And or why is abortion bad? He said, "Oh, let me ask you a question first. Is the extinction of the human race a bad thing?" And I said, "Extinction from what?" He said, "From climate change." And I thought that was just some random example, right? Some like I thought he could have said meteor, he could have said tsunami, he could have said nuclear, anything, right? But he said climate change in specific, right? Because that's his argument. So I was like, sure, yeah, that's a bad thing. And then he was like, okay, having more children leads to the eventual extinction of mankind and more starvation because there will be less resources to go around. Therefore, because you don't want the extinction of mankind due to climate change, we should limit the household amount of babies to 1.4 to limit climate change. That's why abortion is okay. That was his argument. And number one thing that I thought of is first of all, climate change. Boy, do I have news for you. Climate change isn't even real, bro. It doesn't even happen. Like, what are you talking? Like natural climate change, sure, but this whole hoax of global warming and stuff like that. And then he started bringing up studies of how the global temperature has gone up, and I'm like, dude, that could just be because of like a no. That could be because of numerous reasons. People always bring this global temperature has gone up, and I asked him when did they start recording the global temperature, right? Because you know, in order to get a global temperature, what do you need? What do you need in order to get a global temperature? You would need a temperature record of like the entire Earth, every place on the Earth, pretty much, right? And there's no way they have that. Like nowadays, sure, maybe, right? But when did they start recording it? Dude said like 1860s, right? Like industrial era around there. And I'm like, okay, so you're telling me in 1860s, in the 1860s, 1859, I think, in the 1860s, 1850s, you're telling me they had an outpost in every single country, in every single ocean, on Antarctica, they had an outpost every single sea, every single place on Earth to test the global temperature. And he was like, no, right? He looked it up. He didn't even know this. He brought up the study. He didn't even know this. He looked it up, and no, they only had like 5 weather stations. They had like one in USA and then like a couple in Europe, and then they just guesstimated the rest. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? And the problem with that is it's not accounting for a bunch of variables. This is a problem that you'll see I'm going to talk about in all my rants pretty much about climate change, about evolution, whatever. They always just guess and they don't account for the variables. They do not account for the variables. And the variables are one year, a country or a lot of countries could have a heat wave and the temperature goes up like dozens in that country, right? Or like a dozen in that country, like America, for example. Like in the 1800s, Americans thought the earth was like dying or the world was burning down because there were hella forest fires in America, right? So the Earth just goes through natural warming periods. There can be natural heat waves in certain places that would bring the global average up. So let's say, for an example, in one year, 10 countries get a heat wave that boosts the Fahrenheit temperature like 3 points. Every heat wave for every country boosts the average Fahrenheit temperature in that country by 3 Fahrenheit. That's going to bring the global average up. It's going to bring the global average up, right? And that's just saying it's 10 countries and not 20 countries. And there are also a bunch of countries that might have some shock freeze cold or some cold front, right? That's going to mess with the global temperature and bring it down, right? So there's a bunch of variables. The earth isn't just like 75 degrees every single place all the time throughout hundreds of years and it just stays like that, bro. Like that doesn't happen, right? It changes up and down, right? So when it goes cold one day, like if it's 75 degrees today, today's like Monday, it's 75 degrees today, and tomorrow it's 74 degrees. I'm not going to start claiming global cooling, right? I'm not going to say it's going down. And my point with that is that things change in Earth, right? It's not a linear, just straight line, right? Of 75 degrees Fahrenheit across the entire world in every single country. Natural cold fronts, natural heat waves happen, which affect the global average. So there's no way to get some accurate global average to say that global warming is happening. There's no way to get that because of the variables that affect the global average. That's my point, refuting the global average for climate change. And that's even assuming that they actually, the methodology of which these scientists, quote unquote, had, and these weatherologists or whatever had when measuring the temperature and stuff like that. That's even assuming that it's correct, right? So I said all this to say climate change is a terrible reason to be pro abortion. That's just so stupid. And I was thinking, I read a stat somewhere that said all the aborted babies ever, it's over a billion, like 1.4 billion. Imagine if we had an extra 1.4 billion people on the earth. Don't you think just one of them would be able to like come to some conclusion to like help us out? Like, don't you think that one of them would be like, hey, like, don't you think one of them would be an Elon Musk of the world or something like that? Don't you think one of them would be able to help us out, right? Or like, you know what I mean? And he's like, there's not enough resources to go around on some Thanos shit. And I'm like, okay, well, they can just grow up to become farmers, right? Like, they're gonna grow up and produce food and produce for the economy, which is gonna make more food, make more stuff, right? So like the starvation, dude, that only happens in like, bro, starvation is rare nowadays. In worldly, starvation is rare. Like that might seem as a shock to you. That might sound like a shock to you, but starvation is pretty rare globally. I think people aren't really starving nowadays. That's really like brought up by the media, right? Like they show some Africans starving, stuff like that. And you know it's not that rare because whenever there's like a mass starvation in like Sudan or something like that, it's all over the news. So if it was happening every single day, some Sudanese starving would not make the news, right? So I'm saying like there's a surplus of food in the world. Not at least in the US. In the world I would say there's a surplus too. There's a surplus of food, bro. There's the trash cans are full of food. If we're being honest, go to your school trash can is full of food. Bro, N words ain't starving, bro. You're not starving. Let's be real. You're not starving, dude. Like, come on. So sure, it does happen, right? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, right? Um, don't think that's what I'm saying. A voice crack. Don't think that's what I'm saying. It does happen. I'm just saying it's rare. I think starvation is rare nowadays for the average person. That's what I'm saying. And also, I'm like, the factories are the ones making all the pollution. Like from your standpoint, they're making more CO2 than anyone, right? Like the factories are the ones like dishing out the green sludge into the lakes and rivers and like making all the petroleum plastic and stuff like that. They're the ones doing these things. It's not the baby that's just consuming a it's got a diaper and it drinks some water and drinks some tit milk. It's not the baby's fault for climate change. Like what? That's definitely a lie from the devil. But yeah, all in all, guys, don't get an abortion. Like, don't. Just raise the child. Have more children than you can even afford, right? It's going to make you a hard worker. That's what God wants, right? He wants you to have more children than you can even afford. It's going to be good for you, bro. You'll never meet someone in your life, right? You'll always talk about like, and don't let your mind come up with hypotheticals and just make up shit. That's like, oh, but this like the woman and she's poor and then she has to quit her job and then she has to quit her school work and then get a job and then be stressed out and then the dad leaves and dude, chances are the person listening to this right now, you've never experienced anyone in your life ever go through that. Does that mean it doesn't happen? No. But my point is, you're just making this situation up or extracting from a very rare situation and applying that as if it's a general that we should go off of, which it's not, right? Majority of women love their children, right? Or the majority of women care for their children. Majority of fathers aren't deadbeats, right? Like they're not just leaving their children. That's like rare. I know that sounds crazy, right? It sounds crazy even as I'm saying it's coming out of my mouth, but it's true. It is true. So don't come up with these imaginary situations that discourage you from taking what I'm saying. Have more children than you can even afford, right? You're not going to regret having a child, bro. I can tell you that right now. Okay, the baby's crying. Okay, you just go feed him, right? I know it's annoying, right? But the baby's, when it grows up, it's going to thank you. He'll be able to provide for you, or the son or daughter the son will be able to provide for you. The daughter will be beautiful. Um, right? You're not going to regret it. That's what I'm saying. When you have a child, you're not going to regret it, bro. Who in here actually thinks when you have a child, you're going to be like, fuck, man, I wish I never had that child, man. Let's just fucking hate this guy. No one, bro. Even the worst mothers you've ever seen in your life, they'll give kisses to their sons. They'll be like, oh, I love you, Junior. I love you, Junior, right? Typically, even like the most mediocre mothers, mediocre parents, you're not going to regret having a child. That's what I'm saying. Me personally, if I had a woman pregnant, I would tell her to keep the baby. Even if I'm not like prepared, even if I don't have money, even if I don't have a job, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to get money, and I'm going to work harder like God wants me to. Don't get an abortion just because you're a lazy fuck and you don't want to do anything with your life, right? If you have a child, that's going to be like fire under the booty to help you like run, like kickstart your life and get a job and get your shit together. I've seen it happen, bro. My brother, when he had his child, he got you get your shit together because you're gonna have a child. You have to lock in. You can't be some chud anymore. You gotta lock in. You get your shit together, for the most part. So if I had a woman pregnant, I would tell her to keep the baby. I would do everything in my power to keep the baby. I want a baby, of course. I'm not gonna kill. I'm not gonna murder my son. And if she murdered my son, if she had an abortion against my will, I wouldn't. I would be mad at her. Honestly, I would be mad. Um, I would I wouldn't hate her. I would forgive her. I wouldn't forget it. I would forgive her. I wouldn't listen to my thoughts that are telling me to hate her and she killed my child or something like that. And I wouldn't listen to my thoughts if they're telling me, "Oh, you're so bad for hating her." I wouldn't listen to my thoughts. Never listen to your thoughts. I would just stay in the present. I would connect with God. And if I die, I hope to be reunited with my son. So I think that got pretty grim, but I think that about wraps up for today's video. I hope everyone who watches this, uh, prays for me, has a good life, and takes what I have to say sincerely. Right, that's a good word, sincerely. Honestly, I love you. I love you all. Right, the King of Sacramento loves you all. Every single one of you who's listening to this right now, I love you. You're my brothers. You're my sisters. I love every single one of you. Tune in next time. I'm probably going to be ranting about maybe climate change. Maybe, man, I feel like I already ranted about climate change. Probably evolution or atheism or liberalism or communism or something like that, or black people or ICE, maybe something like that. Tune in next time for the next video. I love you all, and goodbye.